Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Now we will start the panel session 1 on the implication of Ukraine war to regional energy situation. Please welcome to the stage Mr. Shigeru Kimura, Special Advisor to the President on Energy Affairs of ERIA. Mr. Kimura, please.
Thank you very much, Italia, for your kind introductions and very good mornings, all participants to the 5th East Asia Energy Summit forums in person and also the online. And on behalf of the areas, I'd like to express my thanks to all of you for your participation again. And according to the Arima-san presentations, we'd like to discuss about the ASEAN challenge on carbon neutrality and energy security during these forums. Then, according to Arima-san, I think that it means how ASEAN challenge to balance carbon neutrality and energy security. In other words, securing fossil fuel supply affordably. Then in this session 1, my session, we'll discuss about the implication of the Ukraine war to regional energy transition with 5 resource panelists from the ACE, ASEAN Center for Energies, IEA, International Energy Agencies, and IEJ, and couplers, and which means it's what change on the ASEAN energy situation being brought by the Ukraine war. Thus, then again, I echo to the Arima-san presentations. After COP26, decarbonisation has become the top priority energy issues. And many ASEAN member states echo to the OECD countries to launch a low carbon energy transition, LCET, toward carbon neutral by the year 2050 or after. The most reasonable way of the LCET is coal to gas, Arima-san mentioned. In terms of the power generation, due to the affordability and availability compared to the other new energy technologies, such as the hydrogen and the CCUS. But after Russian invasion to the Ukraine in February this year, ASEAN LCET seemed to be slowed down due to the price hike of global fossil fuel market, oil and gas, mainly brought by the OECD economic sanction to Russia, as well as the historical lower upstream investment of the fossil fuel, especially the oil and gas, due to the promotion of the carbon neutral by government and the private sectors. Thus, in this session, we'd like to touch upon the expert view on the reaction of the ASEAN member state toward the LCET under the high price hike of the fossil fuels, and the prospect of the short and mid-term global fossil fuel market, focus on the oil and gas, and also the change of the fossil fuel trade flow pattern between the before and after the war in Ukraine. So in this regard, I'd like to invite the first panelist, Mr. Dr. Nuki Agua Utamas, and he's appointed in the Executive Director of the ASEAN Center for Energies and regional reporting directly to an international organization and ASEAN entities, and reporting to the Government Council, consists of the ministers' energies in ASEAN member state. Then Dr. Nuki has academic and research background of the postdoctorate in Graduate School Energy Science, Kyoto University, to energy scenario planning in Southeast Asia, and holding the PhD with research on the life cycle energy analysis from the joint Graduate School of Energy and Environment, the University of Technology and King Mongkut, Thailand. So, Nick-san, floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Kimura Sensei. Your Excellencies, Nizumura Sensei, colleagues and ladies and gentlemen, a great pleasure to be here, and thank you for the invitation. Echoing what Arima Sensei mentioned, that the pathway should be different. I think I like that word. So we cannot really becoming the other region perspective. We really need to be this Southeast Asia perspective. So I always say in many forums that apart from the increasing demand that we currently have, Southeast Asia doesn't want to be part of the problem in the future. But Southeast Asia, with abundant natural resources and also abundant indigenous primary energy supply, we want to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. So if I may share the slide, please. Next slide. Next slide, please. Yeah, stating previously, the total primary energy supplies really need to cope with the increasing of the demand. It's going to be more than 2.5 volts in 2040. And in terms of the total primary energy supply, most of the supply coming from fossil fuel, oil, gas, as well as coal. In regard to the total installed capacity, it's also similar figures, and mostly will be provided or generated coming from fossil fuel. On the renewable energy side, hydropower seems to be still becoming the biggest part on generating the electricity in 2040. Next slide. The concern, as we both understood, is that whatever it is, fossil fuel cannot be something that we rely continuously. It is projected by our ASEAN Energy Outlook 6 2020 that before 2040, the region will be the net importer of all fossil fuel. Not to mention the oil itself. Oil is already becoming the net in the region. We already become the net importer of oil starting in year 2000, and it is also assumed that in 2035, the country, will become the net importers of coal. And gas seems to be coming sooner. In less than 10 years, the region will become the net importers of gas. But the condition of Russia and Ukraine war, I think, make it worse. The demand of gas increasing dramatically, also the demand of coal. Some of the countries in Europe already requesting countries in Southeast Asia to increase their export of coal to Europe. So that also, I believe, will change the figures of this production and consumption, meaning to say that the production will be increasing, of course, that because of the consumption increase. And then the production, the consumption will take up the production quicker than predicted before. So I believe the figures will change in our upcoming ASEAN Energy Outlook 7, which is launched a few days from now in these ASEAN Energy Minister meetings here in Cambodia. So next slide. In regard with the total final energy consumption, the industrial sectors and transportation sectors occupy most of the demand of the energy. This is due to the increasing of the economics and also the increasing of the population. So we really cannot see only the perspective of power generation, because some of the countries beyond ASEAN try to impose some technology which is focusing only power generation. Yeah, but in fact, 70% of the energy demand should go to industrial sector, which is thermal is one of the biggest consumers, and also transportation. If it goes on the scenario on the power generation only, it take up only 30% or less. And not to mention the problem of the supply chain of this power generation sector, which is right now, for example, one of the good examples that we discussed a couple of months ago in Sydney, that the production of these wafers, 96% coming from one country, wafer of PV. If we only considering the power generation part, and most of the PV is being produced from one country, the problem will be occurring. The problem of the supply will occurring that we cannot really rely on this supply of this wafer anymore. If this country alone having a problem to support, having problem with this, for example, pandemics, lockdown, for example, the production will reduce dramatically and the price will increasing something that we cannot imagine. So those kind of issues we need to really think and really consider on what kind of a landscape, what kind of pathways that region should take. On the power sectors, you can see over there, we're still relying on coal and also gas. That's definitely something that we cannot avoid. So again, if we have to choose a renewable energy technology, we really need to consider something that we're not going to fall in the same pit. Yeah, like that we really rely only from fuel, for example, in the transportation sectors. When the fuel price is increasing, then we have problem. Right now, we all member states having problem with increasing of the prices of fuel, especially on this gasoline and diesel. But in contrary, the region have a big potential of bioenergy, where we rely on something that, in fact, we don't have those secure enough to supply those fuel. So we better to rely something that currently we have, which is, for example, if we talk about fuel, we can rely on the bioenergy. Next slide. So a bit looking at the potential of the gas production and consumption trend in Southeast Asia. Along the year, up until 2020, for example, the production, the gas reserve is somehow depleted, and the increasing of the gas consumption in most of the member states is also worrying. So that's something that's very obvious that currently the region is relying on the fossil fuel economy. However, again, on the previous slide, if we're looking at this fossil fuel will be depleted, we're going to be the net importers of fossil fuel. Are we going to really rely on the fossil fuel economy? At the moment, yes, if I may say, but for how long? That's a very good question. So basically, our ASEAN Energy Outlook 7 will reveal also the optimization of the least cost scenario, where the country in Southeast Asia up until 2050 will goes in which direction in terms of the fuel mix, especially on the power duration. So how we can keep, to fill the region hungry of energy, and what would be the best mix in terms of the cost. So are we going to really dismantle all of the coal power plant, for example, where people say that the PV is way much cheaper? Let me explain a bit. I do have very good experience on utilizing the PV. Honestly speaking, Kimura Sensei, the PV efficiency factors in Java Island, for example, turn out to be less than 12.5%. If we when compare to for example, the natural gas power generation, which is 55%, it's way much lower. We need almost 5-fold in order to maintain the same efficiency factors with the natural gas. So, and then again, as I mentioned previously, that all of the supply chain is relying on only one country, which is 96%. It is also very unsustainable. Now, again, if we're looking at those, the battery, they say the battery will be, will be, uh, make it those, for example, PV becoming more reliable. In my personal views, if you use solar photovoltaic, you can use it 3 hours, 3.5 hours in most of the region in Southeast Asia. That can be counted as sustainable energy supply. But when you use battery, I would say it's not sustainable, because battery have a lot of problem when you, at the end of the lifetime. Not to mention the source of the battery, lithium, nickel, we have to extract from the natural resources, which is the problem also a lot, environmental problem, health issues, yeah. And honestly speaking, most of the countries in Southeast Asia, when the waste treatment is not also advanced, unlike Japan. So they just dump the battery, even the small battery for the kids' toys, yeah, AAA or AA, we just throw it in the trash, right? Those having big issues in the landfill. So if you're looking at that perspective, and the lifetime of the battery, most of them are 5 years, people say 10 years. Yes, some of them can be 10 years. But due to the some recent, research, the reuse of battery only maximum 30%. So that's also becoming a big issue if he goes on those kind of, direction. So we have to really carefully to make pathways for Southeast Asia. Next slide. The coal production trend, you can see over here, Indonesia, the most country who produce coal as well as consume most, followed by the Vietnam, the production, the red color on the right, and the consumption also a lot in Vietnam. So meaning to say that we really need to use and optimize our current fossil fuel. Of course, with the introduction of new technology to increase the efficiency and to reduce the emission coming from this power plant, we have to really learn and understand the new technology. I think some of the countries beyond Southeast Asia, they're mastering on the advanced ultra supercritical, for example, and not to mention if we implement these CCS, CCUS. But again, we have to see where the technology which is suitable and also affordable. I think Murasa already asked me to stop. I think stop this slide, so thank you very much. Oh, 1 minute, next slide. Just small progress, next slide again. Small progress in the year 2019-2020 in Southeast Asia. Again, one of the good examples, Vietnam tried to increase the power generation coming from wind and PV. Work well because the policy is quite good over there. No land lease. I mean, they reduce the cost, especially on the land lease. But the thing is that when they increase drastically, even though they do have 20% coming from hydro, the grid is not really ready also. So there's another thing that we have to consider. On the 30% of the total energy supply that we talk, the power generation only, is still talking about 30%, still having a problem. The grid is the biggest issue right now in Southeast Asia. People think that we have to increase the renewable energy, but the grid is not ready. So there's a very big homework. And the recent study again, hopefully 2 days from now we will launch, revealing that if we use baseline scenarios, we need around 970 billion US dollar to increase, accumulated numbers for the investment in the power generation alone. And if we follow the targeted scenarios, which is coming from the government, we need 878 billion US dollar. When it is following the ASEAN Plan of Action for Energy Cooperation, we need around 825. But if we use least cost optimization, we only need 525 billion. So we can save around 300 to 400 billion US dollar, let's say. So I think it's a very good option if we try to put the perspective that the least cost, affordability is more important. Again, the security, something that we're looking forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nukit, for your informative presentations. according to him, is ASEAN fully continuously depend on the fossil fuel, but many of the fossil fuel is becoming the import positions. Now gas and coal is export position, but in near future, ASEAN energy demand increasing, so that even though the gas and coal is become the import positions, and also the looking at the renewable energies, so still this region is depend on the hydropower, and it is very good potential, and also significant potential of the hydropowers. And I fully agree the Dr. Nuki's opinion is solar PV is very good, and now price is going down, but capacity factor is still 10 to 15 minutes, it's very small. And also the solar PV plus battery, and according to Nuki-san, is batteries are still some problems. So that so far not appropriate or suitable systems. But this region is plenty of the biomass. So that I fully agree the Nuki-san is a point. Is biomass is one of transition energies. Not only the gas, but also the gas biomass is a very good transition energies. And also this region need to increase the capacity of the grid systems in this region. Thank you very much, Nick-san. And next, so I'd like to invite the Miss Tori Bosnich is head of the Oil and Market Division at the Paris-based International Energy Agencies, and has been tackling the international oil market development for the IEA over the 2 decades. He is the editor of the agency flagship Oil Market Report and the medium-term Oil Market Report. She is also the regular contributor to the IEA's World Energy Outlook and World Energy Investment, and play a lead role in the agency's essential work on the energy securities. Ms. Bosnich is obtained the Bachelor of Art in International Economics and Business Administration at American University of Paris, AUP, and has undertaken extensive trainings in econometrics and energy economics. And Tori is originally from the Stavanger, Norway. So, Ms. Tori, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kumura. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished panelists and guests. It's a pleasure for me to be here today, despite the very early start from Paris. So I'm happy to talk to you today about how we see the current crisis, the war in Ukraine, impacting all markets, just both for the short term and going forward. So let's just start. It's clear that the war will have long-term consequences. For oil, we're seeing that prices have come down now to levels before the war, but we're seeing impacts on both the demand and supply side that we think will be with us for some time. Apologies. So here we can see prices compared to what they were in January. As I said, the blue line, we're seeing crude oil prices down. We hit below $90 last week. We're seeing much stronger prices for products, especially for gas, oil, and diesel. And of course, as we've heard, natural gas, coal, LNG, trending at 2, 3, sometimes 4 times higher than they were at the start of the year. And we're seeing so higher prices and the weaker economic outlook that we're seeing that's resulting from the war in Ukraine is continuing to temper our demand growth expectations. So we can already see here that growth in oil demand since the start of the year have come down quite sharply, and we're expecting this to continue into the second half of the year. Of course, the COVID lockdowns in China is dampening demand right now. And we're also seeing demand being supported by exceptional factor in power generation because of the high natural gas prices and because of efforts in Europe in particular to diversify away from Russian oil supplies. We're seeing strong growth in demand for power generation and even industrial use. So looking at Russia just for a second, as you know, and as we've heard, Russian oil production and export have remained resilient and more resilient than was expected at the outset of the war. In August, we're seeing that exports, both production and exports of Russian total oil, only about 400,000 or 500,000 lower than they were at the start of the year. Revenues are holding up as well. And this is obviously something that is a concern to many of the countries, especially in Europe and US and the G7. So we're looking to see how that will impact going forward. But we are seeing a major reorientation of trade. Of course, US and UK have already banned imports of Russian oil. They're no longer buying it, and EU has scaled down. They've reduced their Russian imports by more than 1 million, 1.2, 1.3 million barrels since the start of the year, but they're still importing about 2.7, 2.8 million barrels a day of oil from Russia. So as you know, when the embargo comes into effect in December for crude and February for products, we're going to see continuation of this reallocation of trade. We do think that there will be more oil, Russian oil, going to Asian markets, but also elsewhere. But we do not think that all of the oil will be able to find new homes. So we do expect both production and exports from Russia to fall towards the end of the year. Apologies. But based on our latest supply and demand balances, we do expect that even with the decline in Russian oil coming in, supplies from other countries are increasing, and we are seeing a slower demand outlook. We do think that the market is flipping to surplus. Product markets will remain in deficit, so especially for diesel, as I said, and this is because of downstream capacity constraints outside of China. We've seen a lot of refinery capacity being closed during the COVID period, and 2021 is the first year in 30 years that we close more refinery capacity than was built, and this has an impact on product markets. So now looking at the longer term, we think that the current energy crisis would also have impacts that would last beyond the next few years in medium term and even into longer term. And this is because the momentum of change now in the energy sector is coming not just from economic and climate commitments, but because policymakers around the world are reassessing priorities and especially addressing their security vulnerabilities. We heard about energy security from the previous presentation, and this is something that we're hearing across the globe, that it is becoming a concern. We are now up in the midst of updating our longer term forecast. As you know, the World Energy Outlook will come out in the next few months and will provide a very detailed look at how the current crisis is already shifting supply demand, not just for oil, but for all energy sources. But I wanted to spend a few words talking about investment before moving on. As you know, investment is central not just to tackle the current energy crisis, but also to get the world on a net zero pathway, as we heard about, was presented in the previous presentation. And especially we're seeing that this is for Europe to reduce the reliance of Russia following its invasion of Ukraine. So we looked at how investment trends have already changed in this year. And in 2022, we're seeing that investment in energy is expecting to pick up by about 8%, and it's to a total of $2.4 trillion, well above the pre-COVID levels. What we are seeing though is that about half of this increase in capital spending is linked to higher costs. We hear a lot about inflation, energy supply, but also in the service sectors and for materials that is having an impact on the investment picture. So investment is picking up across all parts of the energy sector, but the main boost in recent years come from the power, mainly renewables and grids, and for the increase in end use efficiency. But what we are seeing, I cannot get my next slide. Well, here we go. What we are seeing is that clean energy investment is finally starting to pick up, and for 2022, we're expecting $1.4 trillion to be invested, and that accounts for almost 3/4 on the growth in overall energy investment. The annual average growth rate in clean energy investment in the 5 years after the Paris Agreement was signed was just over 2%. Since 2020, that rate has increased to 12%. It's still short of what is required to hit the climate goals, but it's an important step in the right directions. So what we're seeing is that the biggest, the highest level of investment in 2021 came from China for clean energy, about 380 billion, followed by the European Union and the United States. But what we do see is that much more is needed to bring up investment in emerging markets and developing economies to not have, and this will be essential not just to address the energy transition, but also the energy security goals that we have. So just a last word on investment in the different fuels. As I said, investment is picking up across the energy sector. For oil and gas, we're expecting quite a significant increase in investment this year, but we're well below the levels that we were pre the COVID levels. For coal, as we heard, increased investment, especially in China and India. And this is also to do, to some extent, to the higher prices that we see for natural gas now, and the switching from gas to back to coal in the power sector. For energy companies, we're seeing quite a divergent view on how strategies, on how their investment. For oil and gas companies, the biggest increase has come from the Middle Eastern oil majors, Saudi Arabia, Saudi Aramco, in the UAE, ADNOC. We're seeing significant increase in investment, and for the Middle Eastern national oil companies are the only ones that have taken spending above where we were pre-COVID, and for the Western majors, we're seeing increase in American company, US company, both the majors and the independents, but we're staying well below the levels that we were pre-crisis. In European majors, the increase in investment is more geared to clean energy investment rather than the traditional fossil fuels supply. So for my last slide, what happened? I missed my last slide. I'm going to go see if I can still share it. I apologize, I'm having some little technical problems today. So investment to bring clean energy and affordable energy into the system is rising, but it's not rising quickly enough to both get out of the current crisis and bring emissions down to net zero by mid-30. Here, we're just looking at the latest estimate for 2022 compared to some of the IEA scenarios, the announced pledges scenario, which shows what will be required to meet the target that has been set by governments for the climate targets, and compared to the net zero by 2050 scenario that shows what would be required if the world was to get on a net zero by 2050, as many, an increasing number of countries have stated. So, but our estimate for 2022 suggests that today's aggregate fossil fuel investment is more or less in line with the near-term needs for a scenario where we do hit the climate pledges, But this depends crucially on additional efforts from governments to curb fuel demand in line with these pledges. When we're looking at fuel demand today, we see we're not quite there yet. In energy, both for oil and gas, is rising despite the higher prices, despite the targets that are set for climate goals for 2030. So without the additional efforts, today's level capital spending will not be enough to meet demand. It will further reduce the ability of markets to weather volatility ahead. And for the IEA, we see that we do need to step up the effort. We do not need to choose between solving the energy crisis and the climate crisis. Increased investment, in particular in clean energy supply, could be the answer to both of them. So with that, I leave you today, and I'm happy to take some questions afterwards. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Torres. Ms. Torres is touch upon the energy crisis. It's because of the very high price of the oil and gas. And in this case, so investment will be needed. And now is so far historically, many of the countries, private companies, countries invest to the clean energies like renewables. But now is investment to the fossil fuel is now increasing. In 2022 is 8% increase. So that maybe it's IEA's suggestion is we really need the upstream investment to the fossil fuels, including coal. And this one is fully contribute to the calm down of the energy prices is price. So thank you very much, Torres. And I think that many people have a question to you. Now I move on to the next panelist. Next panelist is Hiroshi Hashimoto. Hashimoto-san has been head of the gas group and the IEEJ in Tokyo since July 2019 after joining the IEJ in April 2010. Previously, Hashimoto-san worked on the energy and natural gas issue for the whole years from 2006 at the International Energy Agencies. So he stayed in Paris for years. And prior to those, Hashimoto-san worked for the Tokyo Gas for 20 years, assuming the position in the energy procurement, business deployment, and New York Representative Office, and Sodegaura Energy Receiving Terminal. So Hashimoto-san is provide us the natural gas market, global future prospect of the natural gas global market to us. So Hashimoto-san, floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kimura, for kind introduction. It's my great pleasure for ladies to attend this meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. I'll focus on gas issues. What changes we are seeing this year on the global LNG and gas market? So the first change is a shift of LNG flows to Europe. The smaller chart on the left-hand side top shows the monthly LNG imports by the three major LNG importers in the world, namely Japan, China, European Union plus Great Britain. So this year we are seeing longer blue bars, including European Union and the United Kingdom. And the incremental volumes to the market has been mostly provided from the United States, which is becoming the global champion of LNG exports. In the first half of this year, United States exported more than 40 million tons of LNG to the global market. Right-hand side shows changes in LNG imports during the first half of past 5 years, and blue bars shows the changes in 2022. So we see major decrease in China's LNG imports as well as a major increase in European LNG imports. This year, China, Japan, and Asia reduced LNG imports in the first half of 2022, sending extra to European market. The second issue, second change has been the extremely expensive gas prices, also volatile gas prices. LNG and gas prices have been the highest in the history and more expensive than crude oil since July 2021, even before the war in Ukraine, and showing unprecedented volatility to show up even higher from time to time. And volatility has been quite remarkable even after the middle of this year. We are now seeing continental European premium rather than Asian or other Japan premium of gas prices. We used to see from time to time Japan or Asian premium maybe 8 or 7 years ago, but now TTF is much higher than Asian spot prices or higher than NBP in the United Kingdom. Those issues, shift of LNG flows and expensive volatile prices remind us of the importance of logistics issues, particularly for LNG, transportation of LNG. The chart below shows shipping distances of short-term LNG cargoes for the left-hand side, smaller one, and weighted average shipping distance of total LNG volumes on the right-hand side. We have seen a rather steady decline of global transportation distances in the past, but we may see some longer distance by sudden changes of flows. But this year we may see some slow progress of longer distances because of major shift of LNG from the United States to Europe. So in summary, a couple of months ago, I made some outlook of LNG prices. For example, Japan's average LNG import for 2022 of $16.5 per million BTU, but I may have to revise upward this figure during the course of this year because of a significant change in prices. Second point is global LNG trade is expected to increase by 5% this year, mostly because of the increasing production capacity focusing on the United States. But the global natural gas consumption may not grow this year because of various factors, including extremely higher prices. And future direction is quite uncertain because of the war and other uncertain factors like pandemic or destruction of gas demand by higher gas prices. Prices have been the highest level in the history, more than expensive than crude oil since July 2021. And the global LNG market has observed increasing sale and purchase deals to procure mid to long-term LNG supply, which hopefully could encourage more investment in LNG liquefaction and upstream gas production. But this, of course, needs more supporting policy measures from the government. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Hashimoto-san. And Hashimoto-san is precisely make a presentation. He mentioned about the price hike of energy, and also the energy import has changed. Europe, UK increase, and China, Japan. Others, Asia is decrease, but that is very hot information. And also the Hashimoto-san touched upon the optimization of the logistics. Now suddenly LNG is increasing, so that now is some LNG cargo takes the long distance. But maybe it's year by year, time to time. So they look for seek for the short distance energy transportations, and also the need some government decisions to support the stable of the gas market is also very important. And also, I think that there are a lot of questions to the Hashimoto-san. Hashimoto-san is expert of the gas market issues. Then I move on to the next speakers, panelist. We invite the two panelists from the Capra. This is private companies, and they are really deal the product oil and gas, LNG. Then one panelist name is Yuichiro Torikata. He's a senior product specialist at the Capra, focusing on the value creation proposition with profound understanding on the energy market analysis, data ingestion and the compilation methodologies, as well as data dissemination and the visualizations. Previously at the IEF, International Energy Forums, Riyadh basis international organization, Saudi Arabia, Yuichiro oversaw the joint organization data initiative, so-called the JODI, and the global energy data transparency initiatives, gathering key oil and gas supply demand indicators from the participating countries, representing around 90% of the total world volumes. Before joining IEF, so Yuichiro is also worked for the IEA in charge of the energy statistics. He's a world energy balance tables. Then another panelist is Matthew Boyle, and he's lead analyst for the Capra Insight dry bulk, like solid energies, solid fuels, energy, and gas research, specializing in the supply and the demand market fundamentals. Matthew is bring over 20 years commodity research and analytic experience, gained working for the companies with a whole spectrum of the industries, including producer of the barrel, finance with Goldman Sachs, and shipping with Ordendorff, as well as specialized commodity research firms, including the Wood Mackenzie's and CRL. And she's originally from the Sydney, Australia, and he worked for the has worked in Tokyo, London, Brisbane, and Singapore. Now he's in Singapore. Now he's get triple major Bachelor of Art degree and in European geography from the University of Sydney, as well as specialized iron making and metallurgical coke making course from the McMaster University. He's a specialist of the product, and also his background is something like metal engineering. Then firstly, I'd like to invite the Yuichiro. Please keep time and 5 minutes, please. So Yuichiro,
problem.
floor is yours.
Thank you very much for your introductions. I'm very humbled to be in such a distinguished panelists and friends. So the first and first, I'd like to explain a bit why we are sitting this panel today, and then what we are good at as Kepler. Then I'll try to talk a little bit of like what we see from historical numbers, and then I will hand it to the Matthews for the future perspectives, as he's leading the insights teams and projections. So who we are in the first place, we are the companies, analytics providers that basically take all the information we can get it from the maritime domains, especially from all the cargo tracking capabilities that we have. And we use some of the technologies like the satellite images and drones to monitor inventories. But today, I just try to focus only on the maritime side of it, which is the cargo tracking. So we do monitors LNG, crude oil products, and dry bulks. That includes coals, irons, even the grains for the food and so on and so forth. And we do look into we know all the location, the berths of more than 12,000, and we tracks the 850, more than 850 product types and grades. Name of the crude types, fuel oils by grade, different grades, so on and so forth. And then we treat 1 billion AIS signal, which is the signals that is taken from the ships that to give the locations of the ships on a regular basis, so that we can track on real-time basis with the location of the ships and where they are heading to what they are carrying, and so on and so forth. And we do track pretty much at every cargoes that carries all sorts of energy commodities, which is around 36,000 vessels that we track every day and 24/7. So you can see on the graph, it's very busy, the map, that those little dots that you see in the arrows is the ships, and the orange is the ones that is empty, and the green one is carrying the cargoes. We see all the tiny dots on the ground, all the installations or energy installations, and refineries, inventories, storage capacities, or the import and export terminals. And you're looking at this is only the one for the liquid terminals that you're looking at in this graph. But what we can do, in addition to that, we have natural gas, LNG, LPG separately, and then also dry bulks and coals, iron ore, and so forth. So we know exactly what's in the ships. Unlike some other the services that you see, you know exactly what's inside and then how much going to where exactly. So what you can see it, I think I'm just going to give some of the capability, demonstrate some of the capabilities, and it's sort of the reiterating to the other speakers already made on this point. Like the one that I think Toril was already showing this charts that is showing all the Russian crude oil imports from Russia to the destination. So you're seeing all the cargoes arrive to the destination from Russia, and that's all the way until yesterday. I pulled this number yesterday on September 10th on the daily basis. So you see the substantial increase in some of the countries which were not the traditionally the big importers, and mainly India, and in some extent China is also increasing the volume quite substantially. And that's partly it's been reported quite intensely that Russians are making very heavy discount on their crude oils, and you see the consequence is that there are the much needed energy when the price is so high, and LNGs and other commodities, there are still the heavy appetite for Russian crude oil. On the other hand, if you look at LNG, and what we see it here is the opposite side. Traditionally, Asia has been the home for the LNG import for the long times. And from the last year, the last winter, let's say, that we see that during the winter times, that Europe increased the LNG purchases despite the heavy presence in Asia, and usually they stop buying by the summer times, but that's changed quite substantially the way since the invasion took place, and then all the LNG cargos are still going to the Europe, that as Mr. Hashimoto was mentioned earlier, that because of the price differences, and as you see on the yellow color here line is the split between the Asian and the European price, and then as European price is becoming more expensive, means the Asian price is cheaper. That you see the European volumes are maintains to be more higher than the previous year, and it's expected to continue in such way, and the partly it might be explained by the fact that the Europe made mandates to store their storage capacity up to 80%, and they're achieving it now. So it might ease a little bit of the purchases for the winter for the preparation for Europe, but it's continued to be the case that Europe is the new home for the LNGs. And so this is what some of the capabilities using our cargo tracking capabilities that we use, we can demonstrate. And I will try to I will hand it to Matthew for more the further future insight on this on our capability, using our capabilities. So.
Yeah, thanks, Yui, and good morning all. I know that we have some time constraints, so I'll be very, very quick. A lot of the previous speakers have talked a lot about the fact that there has been sort of a price spike in gas and in coal, and you're seeing more coal being produced, and you know, sort of that has caused a dislocation due to the conflict that's happened, has caused a dislocation and a shifting in trade flows, and we completely agree with all of that. One of the things I want to talk about is I want to make it very clear that a lot of the targets that the countries have made in terms of carbon neutrality and all that are still valid and are still relevant. It's just that at the moment there's a little bit of a short-term change in terms of dynamics for energy security due to geopolitical issues and the like. What I wanted to highlight in this chart in particular is the fact that in Asia, you have it's almost like a line that sort of divides Asia, where you have Northeast Asia, which is primarily sort of purchasing gas and coal as part of a long-term contract basis. And in Southeast Asia, you tend to get more of the gas and coal purchases on a spot basis. So you can see the lines at the sort of the very expensive lines that you can see there are for spot prices for gas and for coal, and the lower lines down towards the bottom of the axis there are more the long-term or oil index linked contracts for LNG, as well as I actually used the Japanese power utility reference price. So that is the price that is negotiated for coal contracts between Australia and Japan over the Japanese fiscal year. And you can actually see that the spot price for coal is sort of correlated a little bit with the long-term price contract, but the spot price for gas is significantly higher than the oil-based linked contracts. Now, the final point I will just raise before I finish is that if you just look at the seaborne market for gas, for LNG, and the seaborne market for coal, 2020 has actually seen seaborne import demand for both commodities fall year on year. There are a couple of main reasons for that. The first, sort of one of the speakers earlier touched upon increased production in coal production in China and also in India. That has reduced the necessity for seaborne imports of coal. You also have had improved hydroelectric generation, power generation in across the whole region in Asia. That has also contributed to that, what we call that thermal gap, where sort of where you need coal and gas generation to sort of increase. That has decreased year on year. So the requirements for gas and coal generation have been lower. Europe is a different story, but I mean, in Asia, those demands have actually been less year on year. And our view is that that will continue as we move forward into 2023, at least until the spot prices start to decline a bit. Currently, spot prices for gas and coal do not match market fundamentals. They are dislocated from market fundamentals. And so they do need to decline for balance to sort of return back to the market. And on that note, I will pass it back to the moderator. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Yuichiro and Matthews. I think that Yuichiro's very good information is Russian export of the oil is increasing, and but the destination is different compared to the year before. And also in terms of energy, is now Europe will increase the energy import, so that also energy import pattern is becoming change. And Matthew is touch upon the gas price market and LNG and coal in East Asia is a long-term contract basis, but ASEAN is a spot market basis. So that now spot market gas is very, very expensive. So that for if high price, it's not easy to use the gas by the ASEAN regions. But still, ASEAN is can import oil and gas from the Russians. So that I'm not sure its price is follow to the spot market, or anyway, it's still they can import. So that is, I think, summarize of the couple of two panelists' presentations. Now, time is no time, but if you have the some question to the whole panelists, 5 panelists. I accept the 1 or 2. So you have the some question from the okay.
Yes,
yeah, please.
We received one question from Zoom. It's from Robin Hughes, Catalyst Change Limited. So there is no doubt that LNG or CNG are important fuels for economies to thrive during the transition to a carbon-free society. However, the resulting emissions of all methane slippage and usage emission are extreme. What policies will be forthcoming to ensure that all methane emissions are mitigated through direct catalyzation? Thank you.
Question to whom? Me?
Yeah.
So
Please,
somebody volunteer to answer to these questions? This is touch. It's little bit seem to be government policies, but our panelist is Nuki-san, and also the you say something just on behalf of the.
Can you repeat again the question on this?
Yes. What policies will be forthcoming to ensure that all methane emissions are mitigated through direct catalyzation?
Methane.
Methane, yes.
Yeah, a bit challenging. Yeah, we don't have any exact policies at the moment on the direct catalyzation on the methane, but on the emission reduction, try to implement this CCS, CCUS That's one of the way on the reduction of the emission. And hydrogen is going on. So on the direct utilization of this converting the blue hydrogen perspective on natural gas, that can be also part of the direction in the future. But again, yeah, we haven't really got any solid policies on that matters. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nick-san. And also this year, ERIA now conducting the research studies on the how to reduce the methane consumption, collaboration with IEJ. So that maybe I expect it's a question, somebody question to look at the our research report maybe next year, April or May.
Thank you, Kimura-sensei. Torikata-san has raised his hand.
Okay, Torikata-san.
Okay. Well, I just used the previous the lives the positions to just use it. I think that one of the methane emission is the low hanging fruits what we consider in the natural the industry specific. So there are the opportunity to fully utilize the methane the emissions that which is the heavy cause of the carbon part of the carbon emissions. So that's something against that should it's the one key message is that that's the fairly easy to tackle, and then it's we should make the methane leakage as the easiest things to achieve from the industry perspective. That's one additional point on this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your useful comment. And now is I think that no more questions. So thank you very much, panelists, for your participation to this session one. And before closing this session, I ask to the all in-person audience to give you a big hand to the panelists. Thank you very much.